As an ambassador of vengeance, if there's one group of people who gives revenge a bad name, it's those dirty orchestrators. What do you think this is, an opera? No, I will not have a Maria. I'm full, thank you. These fucking freakazoids with their half masks and their chessboards. Let me give you some advice. If you're plotting revenge on a chessboard, every piece represents someone who's got better shit to do than deal with your loser ass. Leave him alone, you weird dickhead. You know, half of these guys are still going around using untraceable poisons. Look, I'm not a big fan of the Geneva Reventions either. I miss my pocket napalm more than I miss my lost childhood. But we all agreed, no bitch shit. I'm not saying you gotta fight everyone you've ever hated in a burning building shirtless, but if you've never done it, that's like being a food critic that's never tasted savory and gives my restaurant a 2-star rating. And I did fight that guy shirtless in a burning building. I left the stove on. What's your excuse? I'm Lyle Rath, and this is Pregame Discharge, the only video game show providing high-integrity revenge since 2017. Square Enix is selling Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Thief, and the studios that make them. Why? To invest in NFTs and shit, of course. Perfect time to do it. Couldn't be prouder. Now, this was going to be a pretty open and shut thing. I was going to make a joke or two, play the clip of the Halo guy saying, "Bored ape stolen." Call Square dumb and move on. But in researching this story, I ended up uncovering something much bigger lurking just below the surface. Kyle, play the scary music. The company that's buying Crystal Dynamics, Eidos, and Square Enix Montreal is a holdings firm called Embracer Group, which you probably haven't heard of, but you probably should have because they are massive. Originally, they were called Nordic, as in THQ Nordic, which is a good place to start. They own that. So Darksiders, Destroy All Humans, Kingdoms of Amalur. They also bought Gearbox last year, so Borderlands, Deep Silver. They own Saints Row, Metro, Red Faction, Dead Island. They own 3D Realms. They bought Koch Media, like Koch Brothers, not the soda. They own Time Splitters, Saber Interactive, Asper Media that's doing all the Star Wars remasters, Biomutant, Little Nightmares, Homefront, Valheim. This is one of the biggest companies in gaming right now, and you've never even heard of it. But wait, the rabbit hole goes deeper, because looking at the recent acquisitions of Embracer Group, they purchased a company that makes board games called Asmodee for $3 billion. Billion with a B. For reference, Disney bought Marvel for $4 billion. There is no gold behind our money. You telling me fucking Ticket to Ride is worth 10 Tomb Raiders? Is Big Board Game really so vast in its influence? What the fuck is going on? We just got our first look at some gameplay for Sonic Frontiers. It's Sonic running fast. It's an open world. Not gonna lie, has a little bit of the vibe of those videos where someone just grabs a model and slaps it into a hyper-realistic Unreal Engine field and everyone in the comments says, "Nintendo, hire this man." And I think it might have happened. I think Sega hired that man. The developers of Genshin Impact and Honky Impact? What? Are making a super stylish new action game called Zenless Zone Zero. We don't know much about the game other than, look at it. Might not even look like this. This might be all pre-rendered. But the developers did say it would have some kind of roguelike mechanics. If we're taking guesses, I mean, Genshin Impact is probably a good place to start in terms of broad strokes and what kind of monetization system the game will have, because Genshin Impact has made $1 zillion, which is probably why Sony wants to release 12 live service games by 2025. 2 by the end of this fiscal year. Did I mention this info comes from an investor meeting? Video games are fun. If you're wondering why games are all turning into a second job you have to pay for, it's because if they pull it off, they fucking dominate the industry. Check out this list of the top 10 most played games of 2022 so far. Notice how none of them are from 2022. But do not despair. These games can also manifest as a cruel lesson of hubris. Take, for example, the hit game Baby's Fall, which dropped like the slippery infant that it was to having 1 player earlier this month. There have been plenty of these things that have anthemed against a wall or crashed in Battleborn. And if that happens enough times, companies might start to see this model as kind of a risk as opposed to something that they definitely have to do all of the time. But hey, Sony also said they wanted to port more of their games to PC, so That's nice at least. If there's one thing that always wearing a hat guys everywhere can agree on, it's that a Pokemon MMO would be fucking dope, dude. And if there's one company that loves to never do anything anyone wants, it's Nintendo. That's why Temtem exists. It's pretty much a Pokemon MMO, and pretty much is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. The game's been in early access for a while, so technically you can play it now, but its official 1.0 releases in September, so you might want to hold off. You might not want to play this piece of shit. I'm just being mean. I don't know why I'm being such a dick. It's probably fine. Star Wars, The Force of Star Jedi the Star Wars Dark Souls is getting a sequel called Star Wars Jedi Survivor, where he finds a white guy in a goo tube. No gameplay or anything shown yet, but Respawn Entertainment typically makes pretty good stuff, especially when it's single player. Who left this up here? That's weird. Greedfall 2 got announced. Now, if you've never played Greedfall, don't feel bad, neither have I. It's an RPG with good but not great reviews and a cult following for apparently nailing the vibe of an old school BioWare game in a way that BioWare hasn't been lately, which is a pretty solid pitch for the sequel to this might be sick. Gotham Knights got a new trailer showcasing Nightwing and the Red Hood. This is a video game that sure is looking like a video game. If you're a big fan of the Arkham games, this is not the same team making this. That team is working on the Suicide Squad game, which is also a multiplayer co-op superhero game. Do with that info what you will. Nintendo did a little indie world showcase with trailers to a bunch of indie games, some of which we've seen already, some of which we haven't, and some of which are just ports, so I'm not going to go through all of them. The standouts to me were Ooblets, which is a Technicolor mess of little things dancing, which the Animal Crossing crowd might like, Soundfall, which is a rhythm-based top-down shooter, and Another Crab's Treasure, a Dark Souls game where you play as a crab.
It's time for crab.
Certain people might describe Cyberpunk 2077 as a colossal fuck-up, but some fans are hopeful that as more content is added to the game through DLC, it can finally become what CD Projekt Red promised it would be, so long as they don't fuck that up too. Now we might have a good idea of what's in store since someone at CD Projekt Red fucked up and patched the script for the DLC in its entirety into the game's files with the latest update. It didn't take data miners long to find it, and since this was, again, a version of the entire script for the DLC, there's maybe too much info floating around. So here's the stuff you might want to know. The DLC takes place in the Pacifica region of the map, where a new area called the Combat Zone opens up. For plot reasons, Johnny Keanu's character is replaced by a new character called Songbird for the DLC sections of the game. Those plot reasons being that Keanu Reeves was busy, probably. You also get to go to the previously locked off Sports Dome, presumably to play real sports like League of Legends, and the DLC can affect the main story and alter how the game ends, at least in the literal sense. In the abstract, there might not be any saving this one, but I guess we'll see. EA is jealous of what Microsoft and Activision have and wants to be bought or merged with. God, these fucking business stories. Yes, I am always this entertaining at parties. Now, I know as gamers, you might say, who would want to buy EA? That's the poop company that makes games for butts. And you'd be right. But some of those games for butts used to be very good, and there's a lot of brand recognition behind a lot of those properties, so it might be fun to see someone who's not EA own them. That is, if you ignore the fact that the gaming industry is folding in on itself like the city from Inception. Except that was the best part of Inception, so it's like opposite Inception, where that's the part that sucks. In the time leading up to E3, a bunch of developers have been saying things without really saying things, if you know what I mean. Ubisoft has confirmed that Beyond Good and Evil is still happening, which checks out considering last time we saw it, they were like, we made a walk cycle, so it's probably bound to be pretty far off. The developers of Hollow Knight Silksong, like, coughed. Bethesda announced that they were delaying Starfield and Redfall to 2023. God of War showed off some of its accessibility features, but nothing actually new content-wise. Since E3 is right around the corner, now is the time for developers to either manage expectations or, like, shut the fuck up so they don't ruin any surprises. E3 is happening? That's right. I know I said it wasn't, and it isn't, except it is. Kind of. Obviously, without E3, there's a big hole left in gaming, and next Next month, there are going to be a ton of digital events to fill the gamer hole with hole sludge. So what's going on this month? Well, to start, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are getting an announcement on June 1st, which as of the release of this video will be tomorrow, but you heard it here first. Next, we got a PlayStation Plate of Spray on June 2nd. They specified it would mostly revolve around PSVR and third-party titles, so don't expect that to be the big one. June 9th is the Summer Jeff Fest. That one will probably be the home for Wayward announcement trailers. On June 10th, Netflix Gaming is having a conference. By the way, Netflix is the latest company to try to do the whole streaming games thing. It never really works. June 11th, we'll have a Guerrilla Collective stream, something called a Wholesome Games Direct, and the Future Game Show. The Xbox Bethesda Showcase and the PC Gaming Show will happen on June 12th. Nintendo, Ubisoft, and Square are unconfirmed at this point, and EA has said that they're not showing up because they're the poop company. So you can keep an eye out for those, or you could just watch Pregame Discharge at the end of the month and take them all like a shot to the spine and not have to give a baker's fuck about any of these, because that's what this show is for. Anyway, here are the game releases for the month. I'm Lyle Rath, and this has been Pregame Discharge. If you came here from the Elden Ring cartoon, thanks for sticking around till the end. The show helps us fund more animations. We also have a Patreon. To make cartoons monthly, we need to be working on 2 to 3 at the same time, and we're not quite there yet, but we're getting there. You can also help us out by just watching more videos. Not this one, though. This one's like over.